There are an eclectic set of handouts in this lesson. Teamwork was primarily what birthing better families were all about when we developed these skills in the early 1970s. Fathers were just coming into birth, and we had to work together. We had to share a common set of skills that we both knew we were using and how we could use them together. That was important. You're going to learn many skills to develop your teamwork. It doesn't matter whether you get on with your partner or not, or whether you had a fight that day. The reality is that birth is unique. And when we have good teamwork skills, we all rise to the occasion and help during the birth. The two birth plans are also important. When these skills developed in the early 1970s, women had no choices. No choices. But during the 15 years of the major development of these skills, that changed. Birth plans began to be advocated. Childbirth education changed as well. In the 1970s, everybody in the United States was taking a Lamaze or a Bradley class. In New Zealand, only some women were taking a Grantley Dick Reed class because that was geared towards women wanting to have a natural birth and those that were low risk. And they actually had to be prescribed by their obstetrician in order to attend those childbirth classes. They had to be risk evaluated. In the United States, Lamaze was taught everywhere. Because I gave birth in the 1970s, too many women who took Lamaze classes oriented toward natural birth, pain-free labor with no medical interventions stopped using their skills when they had more interventions. And that was problematic. Why should you stop using your skills? Why should skills be connected to a particular type of birth? That doesn't make sense. 100% of pregnant women will give birth, and birth unfolds for 100% of pregnant women one way or another. And so what we developed by the 1980s was this concept that you should create this birth plan that was being advocated about what you want and you don't want. And you should also create a skills-based birth plan about the skills that you've learned and the ones that you're going to use. It also becomes your cheat sheet. Just take it with you so you remember to use your skills. And if we have skills, all of us cope better. So make a skills-based birth plan. Our encouragement is that whoever your birth professional is, that at 24 weeks and every appointment after that, you have them notate what skills you learn at that point. So those go in your record, which means if that birth professional isn't with you, your record is with you, and other birth professionals can help you use those skills and praise you for doing so. It's really important. A skills-based birth plan is very, very important. It keeps you on track for remembering that your birth will unfold and you have to do it. The three birth roles. Pregnant women, you know you're going to birth one way or another. Fathers-to-be or others who are going to help you get very confused about what their role is in the presence of a birth professional. From the 1950s to the 70s, the role was a birth coach. Then when the natural birth advocates said that skills don't matter, birth is instinctive and natural, and women need to just choose what they want, the role of the father or other became a support person to support women's choices and to protect the sacred space of birth, which is just frankly too hard for a birth coach to do. So the role of the father or the coach or the other is to help the pregnant woman cope and manage and to feel in control by using her skills. The role of the birth professional, if you're in a hospital, you will either be in a room by yourself or in a ward. Staff at the hospital will come in periodically and do assessments, and your doctor will come in less periodically. You're left on your own. You have plenty of time to use skills. So it's really important to understand your role as a pregnant woman is to do the birth as best you can. You'll birth better when you're skilled. The role of the other person who's with you is to help you do that job better. And the role of the birth professional is to safeguard the health of you and your baby. You might not like what they do. You just need to get on and do it. And that's why birth skills are so important. And you'll find birthing better skills work so brilliantly around all types of birth professionals, whether at home with a midwife or home alone or home with a doula or in a birth center or in a hospital, high-tech or low-tech, or whether you transfer. Birthing better skills were developed by us as families so that we would have skills to birth our baby in all circumstances. The three births was an interesting handout. I got asked many, many years ago, well, you can't replay birth. Well, you can't, but you can imagine it. What I did was I wrote a composite birth story. It was a labor and a vaginal birth with a woman and a man. Change the roles, doesn't matter. They didn't have skills, but they felt pretty good about the birth. That same composite birth story unfolded the exact same way in the second birth, but neither the mother or the father liked the birth as it unfolded. And that happens. The third way of telling the same story was what happened when those same imaginary people used the birthing better skills. It's a good handout to read. The next handout is the birthing behaviors. As we developed these skills, it became really clear there were women who coped and there were women who didn't cope. That was the division. It wasn't whether they was at home or in the hospital or whether it was around no interventions or lots of interventions. Women either coped or they didn't cope. They either felt like they were in control or they felt overwhelmed. The behaviors of women who coped were definable, and the behaviors of women who weren't coping were definable. And that's what this handout is. It's a list. So take that list to your birth. You want to do more behaviors that show you're coping and less behaviors that show you're not coping. And this is where the role of the birth coach becomes very important, because they can often see and hear much quicker than we as birthing women can respond ourselves.